Hi everyone, my name is Emily Singer Lucio and I'm the ADA coordinator for the University of Maryland.
Hello, my name is Sara M and I am the inaugural lead coordinator for the Disability Cultural Center.
Great, thanks Sara. Welcome.
Thank you.
We're happy to have you here today. I wanted to talk with you a little bit about you and your life on campus and life with a disability. So let's get started by having you tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, where should I start?
It's a big question.
It's a big question. Well, I was born and raised in Colombia, South America, and I came to the U.S. for graduate school, and I never left. I have a degree in cultural anthropology and disability studies, and I was faculty for 10 years. And then I decided to make a parallel switch. And so this is my first time as staff. And I'm really excited to be part of the Disability Cultural Center. And it's a great opportunity. And I'm excited to just share in with the community, my own community, and, a community that is or works and shares space at the intersection of other identities, marginalized identities, and I embody a lot of those. And it's exciting. It's exciting, a new chapter in my professional career.
Yeah, we're very excited to have you here, and we've all been anxiously awaiting the Cultural Center, so this is very exciting. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself in terms of your disability?
Sure. So this is a question that's always, we disabled people, I don't speak for everybody, of course, I don't want to generalize, but we usually try to redirect that to our work and focus on what we do in community and for our community together in collaboration. I think that the most important aspect of disability is leadership and redirecting leadership or reclaiming leadership that has been historically mostly in the hands of non-disabled people. So I think it's important to focus on why we do the work. I'm multiply disabled. I'm neurodivergent, I'm autistic, and I live with chronic illness, and I was diagnosed as an adult, and that has a lot of different nuances in terms of how different that is from people who were diagnosed at an early age, and as someone who is also a brown woman and an immigrant, I also flew under the radar for all those years, right? I wasn't diagnosed until, my early 30s, and I'm 41 right now. So, and that was a diagnosis that was, happened through community. So that's one of the things that are really important for us, and it's not a diagnosis that's recognized within the professional circles. And that's very valuable and valid for us. So it's important for us also to learn how to navigate the systems and kind of trick systems in terms of we understand that our identity doesn't depend on, what professionals think about our lived experience, but we know that we work within systems and that we are, we must understand systems and languages within systems and how they operate through power. And so I sought a formal diagnosis so that I could have access to services that I needed so that I could continue the work that I've been doing, the activism and leadership that I've been doing, without having to sacrifice my own well-being to do it. So it's not the case for everybody. I have a lot of privilege as well, as someone who has, pale skin and someone who often, was used to masking as an autistic person, and so I could, not anymore very much, I could pass as non-autistic and white, and so I could, circulate or inhabit spaces that many people in my community could not. Um, so, primarily BIPOC. So, yeah, that's been an important journey for me in terms of, I hate the word journey, I don't know why I said it. It's been an important process for me, and it's really never ending. There's a lot of internalized ableism, and that's something that we also work against in community. And everything that I do is really framed, informed by, and infused with the principles of disability justice. And those are really focused on, cross-movement collaboration, intersectionality, leadership of the most impacted by intersecting systems of oppression. And so one of the most important elements of that is interdependence. So working together to achieve collective access and collective liberation. So community is the most important thing in my life, and it's really what saved me, literally, along with my service dog Coco, who's here laying next to me. So yeah, that's what I would say about disability. Is not something that's accessory to me. So I reclaim an autistic identity. So I use identity first language. I'm an autistic person as opposed to someone with autism. I don't carry autism around and just drop it, like a bag or a hat when it's convenient. So yes, my identity does define me and defines my work and defines everything that I do. I also, again, going back to privilege, I understand how much of a privilege it is to say that I can claim autism and be relatively safe to say that and not be harmed. Like, for instance, an autistic Black person who stims in public, it could be subject to police brutality and other, forms of oppression and violence. So I have a lot of privilege in that sense.
That is so amazing. It's so much great information, and I agree with you 100%, right? We constantly as a society create these norms, right? And then there are pieces that don't fit into those norms, and so then we have to do what are called accommodations, right? When instead what we should be doing is ensuring that we are making a society that fits and works for everybody, right? And accepting of everybody. And so yeah, there's a lot to unpack in that conversation. I think a lot of people learn they have a disability at different stages in their lives. Some people learn when they're born. Some people learn as they get older. Some people, as you said, you learned a number of years ago. What was it like learning that at that stage in your life?
It was learning about it was in terms of what?
Well, I'll give you an example, right? Mm-hmm. I've heard stories of individuals who have non-visible disabilities who have for years thought there's something different or something's going on and I don't know what it is, right? And then they learn there is a disability, and maybe it's a learning disability or some other type of non-visible disability, right? And they think, oh my God, now that makes sense. Now I understand. Now I can figure this out, right? So for them, in those cases, right, to some extent, there was a sense of relief knowing that what it was that was going on, right? And it was the not knowing that was frustrating, right? I can't say that's the case for everybody, but I'd love to get your take on how you felt when that happened.
So, a lot of us understand ourselves. I mean, all of us, but I guess that awareness and that acceptance happens within a cultural, social context. And so the understanding of, or identity formation is, culturally dependent and socially dependent. So understanding oneself, aside from that or in a vacuum is impossible. And I think that it is society and the normative context of what you were discussing earlier is what determines how one feels about disability. There's if there were no ideal or supposed ideal of humanity, or what should be, set as the ideal of, humanity, or the archetype of the perfect human being, which, is white, male, middle class, cis heteronormative, quote unquote able-bodied, which I don't necessarily agree with. Able-bodied is more an ideology. Able-bodiedness, then, non-disability, productive citizen, then definitely you are disposable. And so for me, it was, again, I was within a very privileged context. I was doing my dissertation, and my dissertation was on neurodivergent leadership, and specifically autistic leadership in transition services. So this pretty unprecedented group of adults who were leading transition services out of Berkeley, the Ed Roberts campus, for other autistic and neurodivergent youth. So that's pretty unprecedented, primarily because disabled people have been pushed aside in terms of, leadership. So I worked with them, it was collaborative research, it was action research, it was, praxis-oriented research, local, on the ground, collaborative. And so it was within that context and that atmosphere during 2 years that I started to kind of discover little pieces of, that identity that, started to form a picture that made a lot of sense for me. And so that's when I obtained or discussed that identity through, collective or community diagnosis with my core researchers. And, what was most meaningful for me was the process and the people that I was with. And it really wasn't surprising. I guess it was more, okay, I can continue to do my work within a context that makes sense for me and my experience. I had already been to work in the world of disability for many years. I've been doing this for 15, 16 years. So it wasn't like, oh, I'm new to this world. How am I going to go about it? Where am I going to start? And I had already started working within a neurodiversity context. So it was, I guess I would say it was reassuring in the work that I was doing. And it just brought a lot into perspective. Growing up and my family and all of these things, but it mostly reassured the work that I was doing. And it allowed me to think about things that I needed and that I was just pushing myself to do without any support that I could get. Like, for instance, my service dog. And then I became chronically ill. So then that's another aspect of my identity that's, I guess, a little bit more difficult to manage. And there's a lot of emphasis on the social model of disability, which is still very much the norm within, I guess, non-disabled circles. A lot of non-disabled professionals or teams think about, the social model is the end-all be-all. But actually, we've moved way past that within, disability studies and disability activist communities, and we're thinking really way beyond that. So we're not saying, it's just society, that disables us. Yes, of course, that is part of it. But really, the body, and bringing the body-mind into the conversation is important. Society has not really created my chronic illness, right? The body is really important. Body-mind is really important in this conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it is actually social structures and policies and interactions and systems that too contribute to how chronic illness, myself and my chronic illness and how I interact with society, make me feel better or unwell or less welcome, or it could be a different space where I'm unable to do the things that I do. So it is not that disability is a social construct. It goes in different ways. Disability is a political and a cultural identity. It is an embodied experience, and it is a side of political struggle. So disability is not one thing, it's multiple things. So I guess I embody all of those,
Yeah,
I would say.
that's great. What do you wish others knew about you or understood about you?
I think what I wish others understood about me is that I'm a part of a big community, that I survive through interdependence, and that whatever the community, I belong to several ones, that it's important to take a step back. If it is not your lived experience, to take a step back and support and be a political companion and walk alongside or roll alongside, but to actually, lead by obeying. This is something that the Zapatista community discusses. You lead by obeying, meaning you support the communities in their own path to self-liberation. You don't liberate anyone. You don't participate in the savior mentality or the helper mentality. And so I wish that people know that about me within that context. And personally, I think that, again, I cannot be extracted from the context. But I think I would wish that for all chronically ill people, that society would be more conscientious about sensory stimuli and how much it affects neurodivergent people. For instance, scents, perfumes, lotions, that people just use every day, just because it is the way that our society works. The perfume industry and everything now is so scented. It's so hard to find a shampoo that isn't scented. It's so hard to find everything that isn't scented. And when you're trying to find something that is, it's like 3 times more expensive, and it really reduces the quality of our participation in every space, the willingness, the enjoyment. For me, it just causes tremendous migraines, nausea, and so I never enjoy spaces where I have to put up with that. It's just tremendous.
Yeah, I've gone to the theater oftentimes, and at the theater there's often a statement in the bulletin that says, please. But the thing is that they're not getting it until they get to the theater, right? It should be in the promotional materials when you buy your tickets or whatever, right? The other place I see it as a huge issue is on airplanes, right? Because the airline... Right, you're trapped, and there's no good airflow, and the airlines don't do much about it either. But I know of people who have had issues with that, and I'm very conscientious of that when I go places. But I don't know of a lot of people. But you're right; it's hard to find non-scented products in so many places. Yeah.
And the people who have seen doing the work on this relentlessly is our disability justice activists. It's everywhere. It's in every material they put out. It's in every space that they create. It's this is a practice that is the most creating models for how to do this. It's in their toolkits. It's in everything they do, and it's still sometimes I feel like I don't want to go anywhere.
One time I worked with an employee and the office they were in, they had recently put in new carpeting and painted the walls. And, there's the off-gas process from the carpeting, right? And then there's the scent from the paint. And so this employee was essentially not able to come to work in her office. And this was long before COVID, before work from home was sort of more of a reality. And so we really had to work with them to understand that and allowances for that. And I've had similar experiences where I've worked with employees where they're doing landscape work and there's chemicals around the landscaping or bug spraying or whatever they're doing. And, and we had a schedule. So this person knew when those things were going to happen so they could avoid those areas and whatever else. And, cause it's, I don't think we're going to get rid of scents entirely in our country.
Or anywhere else. It's just so difficult. The industry is so plagued with it.
Mm-hmm.
And it sells. It's capitalism is destroying disabled people, everybody else, but it's just like so detrimental to disabled people in so many ways. And that's why disability justice is an anti-capitalist politic. And that's just one of the elements. And now that you just mentioned that, Emily, disabled people had been asking for I don't know how many years to make telework a reality.
Yeah.
And that was like, no, it cannot be done. There's no way for us to do that. That just goes against policy, everywhere. And then suddenly everybody, non-disabled people and disabled people alike, are impacted by COVID. And then suddenly telework is possible. So it's like, and then when things go back to, although the pandemic isn't over, but things go back to, everyday life as we know it, disabled people cannot access telework because, so it goes back to the same thing.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that I wish people would think about more carefully and think about an expansive sense of access, which is really what I do and what I think about and what I've taught, is really moving beyond inclusion and thinking about access, but not access in the way that we've understood it, in terms of, access to the built environment, but access in the sense that disability justice movement thinks about it. So access to our own cultural histories, access to our own narratives, access to body-mind autonomy, decision-making power. So that goes beyond inclusion, and I think that that's so important to move beyond that frame. There's the group of people and systems and structures who do the including, and there are those who are included. So why do we have this, and who has the power to include, and who is included, and under what circumstances? So I think that that's really important to think about, especially within, within or from the perspective of culture. I think that that's really important.
Yeah, I think that's 100% correct, right? And it all goes back to sort of fitting a square peg in a round hole.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah,
I mean,
I call it the Jenga theory. Yeah. I tell my students about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because society is meant to be someplace where all of us feel accepted, all of us fit in, and we're building up these barriers that sometimes don't need to be there, right? The other thing I think that's important that you've talked a lot about that I think helps people understand is I think people sometimes have a tendency to, maybe just because of their own lived experiences, categorize individuals with disabilities in something they're familiar with. So they say, oh, when I think of disability, I think only of individuals who use wheelchairs, right? But I think you've helped open a lot of people's eyes that it's a lot broader than that. And it affects so many other people in so many different ways, in ways we don't always see easily, right? Because some disabilities are not as visible to other people, right?
Non-apparent disability is also being, there's even within our own communities and our own movements, there's been a hierarchy of disability, right? Where neurodivergent people with intellectual disabilities, and people with psychiatric disabilities have always been at the bottom of that hierarchy, and that's been enforced within our own communities. Of course, that's being enforced from the outside, externally as well. And so, part I'm not going to say that because I don't remember how it's said, but part and parcel of it is, that understanding of non-apparent disabilities, what is and what isn't disability, is can never be blueprinted.
Yeah.
It's always in flux, like gender identity and expression. So it's purely fluid, and that's why I always reject duality, right? Or dichotomy more so than duality. So for me, there's no neurotypical and not and neurodivergent, or that doesn't exist for me. So I do think and talk about a neurotypical understanding of the world and neurotypical perspective and neurotypical systems and structures, but not non-neurotypical and neurotypical people. That doesn't really work for me, I don't think, in those binary terms. But yeah, I think it's really, that's why I think it's really important to follow the leadership of the community that's self-identifying, and just follow the leadership and what the community is saying.
It's a great place to end. Do you have any final thoughts you want to share with people?
Well, I guess that I want to just say that I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful to now be doing this work. When I was faculty, and I remain a scholar, I will continue doing my scholarship and writing, and but I'm grateful to now be doing this work, because before I could only do this work in my spare time, and I had no spare time as faculty. So this was always like the little thing that I could do to feel well, for my well-being. I was, working, doing cultural work. I was a cultural worker, like some of my colleagues would talk about. So Sandy Yee would say cultural worker. So this is the opportunity for me to really focus on that cultural work that's related to disability at the intersection of other historically marginalized identities. And I'm just so excited to pour all my heart and energy into that. So that's just what I want to say. And I want our community, the campus community and beyond, to start thinking about how we're moving from inclusion to access, in all the wider sense of the term. Access is love, that comes from disability justice, and from awareness to acceptance, starting to understand what that means from the perspective of disabled students, disabled people overall in general on campus.
We are really excited to have you here, and clearly you have a lot of energy and great ideas to bring to this position. And this is a new role, a new area, the Disability Cultural Center. So it is yours to sort of mold and put together. So I'm so excited, and really looking forward to working with you on this. So thank you so much, and thank you for joining us today. I do hope this conversation opens people's eyes to what it is like to live with a disability. For more information about resources at University of Maryland and about disability, please go to our accessibility website at accessibility.umd.edu. And just a reminder that October is Disability Awareness Month, and we do have a lot of great events going on this month. They're also listed on that website. So thanks everyone for listening, and thank you, Sara, for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks.